A story now about those new electric scooters that have been showing up around town. We reported on their arrival a while back. They were billed as a new and fun way to get around town, particularly the downtown area. But there have been concerns about where people are using them and leaving them. And now, as our Marissa Cummings tells us, there is an effort underway to better regulate those scooters. Marissa?
Exactly, Joe. As of right now, there are two major scooter companies in Corpus Christi, Bird and Blue Duck. And while they're welcome to the city, they were unexpected. I spoke with Councilmember Debbie Lindsay Opal about the scooters. She said the first step in figuring out how they can coexist in Corpus Christi is by looking at cities like Austin or San Antonio. After they did that, Opal says the city coordinated with the two scooter companies to come up with a pilot program to figure out regulations. That will include the companies to go through a registration process and have a licensing fee.
And we're really going to be reinforcing with the scooter companies how important it is to follow the rules and regulations that apply to our sidewalks and in our bike lanes.
We reached out to both companies and only heard back from Bird. And they say, quote, "We look forward to continuing to build close partnerships with local leaders as we work together to improve mobility options in the city." If you have any questions or concerns about the scooters, you can head over to our website at KIIITV.com and find the information to properly contact the city. Joe, Mackenzie.
All right, thank you, Marissa.